Welcome into Combat Center. Combat Center on YouTube. We're also simulcasting on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Alex Dono alongside Jonathan Ramakan and Frank Zaffrey as we are previewing UFC 275 in Singapore Indoor Arena. They are accommodating the regular United States start time of 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Glover Teixeira, 42-year-old light heavyweight champion, will put his belt on the line in the main event against Yuri Prochazka. Jonathan, how are you, sir?
I'm wonderful. We got an excellent fight coming up, excellent set of fights coming up this weekend, and I'm excited to talk about it with you guys.
And a man who's just a little bit older than the light heavyweight champion, Frank Zaffrey. How are you?
I'm great. I am great. How can I not be a fan of Glover Teixeira? Old men rule.
Yeah, he's like the Tom Brady of mixed martial arts. So, guys, this one, the more study that I put into Teixeira Prochazka, and we're going to break down the main event first. As much as I have really been bullish for the last couple of years on Prochazka, and the defining moment, of course, for him to earn this title shot was that ridiculous spinning elbow knockout of Dominic Reyes, former mainstay in Rizin Fighting Championships. This guy is the total package. It's the odds are very interesting to me because Prochazka, I believe, does have some clear weaknesses, and Glover Teixeira might be the guy who can exploit them. So Yuri Prochazka is a minus 220 favorite in this fight. That's pretty hefty. The take back on Glover Teixeira, the underdog, he is plus 175 according to betus.com. So Prochazka minus 220, Glover Teixeira plus 125. Quite frankly, Jonathan, as much as I lean to Prochazka, I don't necessarily like the minus 220. On the feet, he has an advantage, right? And that's no disrespect to Glover Teixeira's striking. I just think Prochazka is on another level with his attacks, his angles, and his movement. But Glover Teixeira, I believe, has an advantage on the ground. He's an excellent submission grappler, but he's also an underrated wrestler. And Prochazka has struggled against wrestlers and against takedowns in the past. That could be something that Glover Teixeira could exploit. And then the other thing is, Yuri Prochazka, for as prolific as his offensive output is on the feet, he sometimes sacrifices his defense in favor of offense. So it's not crazy to think that Glover Teixeira could catch him. So I'm leaning to Prochazka, but I think the odds should be closer than they are, Jonathan.
Yes, this kind of reminds me of the situation when it was Jan Blachowicz versus Adesanya, where you had this guy who was a more nimble, kind of striker who was very, very talented on the end. And then you have a guy in Glover Teixeira who comparable and beats Jan Blachowicz. He was able to take him down. He was able to put him on the back, and he was able to keep him honest on the feet. And I think that's one of the underrated parts of this game. Yuri Prochazka doesn't really have the best defense when it comes to his striking. He strikes at a much more unique angle. He keeps his hands down. He uses a lot of, head movement, lateral movement to try to get out of the shots. But I think if Glover Teixeira can just be a little bit and keep him a little honest on the feet, he's going to be able to chain the wrestling together, and he's going to be able to put Yuri on his back. Now, do I think Yuri wins this fight? I'm not sure if we're going to go into predictions yet. I do think he has a better likelihood of winning this fight just because of his just sheer talent and the power that he has. When you're going up against a guy in Glover Teixeira who's this deep in his career, you have to question the chin just a little bit. And Yuri Prochazka, as noted, has put guys to sleep. So I think this is a fight that Yuri should still be favored in. But to your point, don't count out Glover Teixeira. This is a fight that he can absolutely win.
Guys, I had to do a double take. When I was looking at the odds and evaluating this fight, I was wondering, am I looking at the heavyweight division? Because that's when you have a guy who's only got 2 fights in the UFC and finds himself in a title fight. But no. This is the glorious light heavyweight division. I agree with everything Jonathan just said, except that I don't know enough about Prochazka. I don't know. I mean, I know he's got 2 wins, but like the rest of that career, what is it, 32 fights? 30 of them in various other organizations that are not nearly the equivalent of the UFC. So this is only his 3rd trip into deep water, meaning competing in the UFC. I feel like the odds, Alex, are all wrong.
Yeah, and so if I go by previous performances for Prochazka, we've seen the absolute spectacular for him. And I look at, his UFC debut against Volkan Ozdemir. He ended up finishing the fight strongly 49 seconds into the second round. But in that first round, it was tit for tat, and Ozdemir landed a lot of shots on him. And listen, I know that, hey, a lot can change in 2 fights, and he came from Ryzen, where he probably didn't need to use his defense in Ryzen as much as he needs to use it in the UFC. So he may be much better prepared and equipped defensively to go up against a guy like Glover Teixeira. But I do think that there are some vulnerabilities in Yuri Prochazka's game. And then, Frank, let me come back to you on this one. And then, Jonathan, you can weigh in on this. I also feel like part of the reason why some people make it feel like Teixeira doesn't even really have a chance here, discrimination based on the age, right? I think you look at the 42-year-old versus the 29-year-old, the ascending light heavyweight versus the guy who I never thought would be a UFC champion. I mean, I remember he was 32 years old, Teixeira, when he made his UFC debut, which was delayed because he had trouble getting a visa to fight in the United States. Like, he was from his late 20s, like, oh, this guy's so good. He was choking people out down in Brazil. We've got to get him in the octagon. Couldn't get, licensed to fight, had visa troubles. Eventually he got there, and I thought it might already be too late for Glover Teixeira. And he had a failed title run years ago. For him to actually claim the crown in his 40s is crazy. But I've got to feel like, Frank, the 42-year-old versus the 29-year-old has something to do with why so many people are picking against the old man.
I think you're right, and I'm particularly sensitive to it, given that Glover and I are, pretty close in age. I'm just a tad bit older, but look, ever since Jones' departure, it has been the unlikely champion scenario in the light heavyweight division. Jan Blachowicz, you never would have imagined being a champion, but in the vacuum created by Jones' departure, and then a middle-aged man from Danbury, Connecticut, and Glover Teixeira wins the belt. Who would have ever seen that coming? We thought, however many years ago, when he took his shot at Jones, that was it for him. And now if Prochazka happens to win, we have another unlikely champion. Someone's been in the UFC for just half a minute and would get the title. But look, Glover, of the three I've described, if this is the state of the division, Glover's the head and shoulders best, in my opinion. He's the most well-rounded. He's the most hardworking. He's the most disciplined. I think he's the smarter fighter. I just think he embodies all of the attributes necessary to sustain a championship run in the current state of the UFC 205 division.
Yeah, and to that point, I think the only thing that would stop him from a long sustained run, like you guys said, would be his age. Like, after this defense, within his next defense or two, he'll be 43, and it's very rare that we see guys that aren't heavyweights be these kind of champions. And we're kind of seeing a passing of the torch in a few of the divisions. You're seeing it in the heavyweight division, where these older guys are kind of passing the torch to a few of these younger guys, like Gon, like missing the guy, Tom something. But all these younger guys that are making their way up, they're passing the torch. Now you're kind of maybe going to start seeing that in the light heavyweight division. But I do think, to your point, Frank, Glover Teixeira has all the tools. He's a great striker. He's able to take you down. His IQ is there. And that's what separates a great fighter from a good fighter, is their IQ. How can they go and be moldable during the fight? How can they adjust during the fight? If things aren't going right, you have to be able to make it back up. And we've seen it happen with guys like Alexander Volkanovski, come back when they're back on the cards because of their championship mindset. And I think, to your point, Frank, Glover Teixeira is head and shoulders when it comes to that championship mindset and his fight IQ in this division.
So let's go for our official picks. I'll start, Jonathan, and then Frank. I know I said a lot of really nice things about Glover Teixeira. I am going to pick Yuri Prochazka to win this fight. Now, to me, you got 5 rounds at your disposal. I think both guys are going to dish out some punishment to the other. I don't think it's going to go the distance. And so if I'm looking for some value, as I mentioned, I don't like the plain money line, I should say. Prochazka minus 220. I don't like it. I think it's too close of a fight to take those odds. So I'm going to go with, I get slightly better odds on Prochazka by KO, TKO, DKO, or submission. So basically, Prochazka to finish the fight, I'm going to take that at minus 150. I think I can sleep a little bit better heading into the fight the night before, knowing that I've got minus 150 odds on the line versus minus 220. And I don't think we're going to get the 5 full rounds. So I'm going to go with Yuri Prochazka by finish, probably 4th round, maybe 3rd round. What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, you know what? Coming into this show, I was leaning Yuri Prohaska, but Frank, I think you sold me on that veteran IQ. I think I'm gonna lean Glover Teixeira in this fight. There's a couple things watching Yuri Prohaska. He has, to quote Kevin Lee, a couple holes in his game. Right? There's a couple things that he leaves just a little too open that you can't do at the highest level. To your point, Frank, again, when you're fighting over in Ryzen, you can leave your hands down. You can do these kind of unique, crazy kind of style things. We saw it with Manel Kopp. What happened when Manel Kopp came over here? He wasn't able to do those same kind of things. He was almost kind of like a deer in headlights per se. Obviously, Yuri Prohaska, by no means was a deer in headlights in any of his 2 fights. But I do think that Glover Teixeira will be able to just close that distance and allow to either be far enough or too close for Yuri to do landing those damaging shots. I think he'll be able to take him down. And I think after the first 2 rounds, Yuri's probably going to be a little more tired because we haven't seen him in those deep waters before. So, like I said, I was leaning Yuri before, but I think I'm going to go with Glover now. I think he takes him down. He wears him out. And I think it is a decision. I do think we do see the scorecards, and I think Glover gets it done.
Jonathan is preaching gospel, so I hope everybody's listening right now. Listen, Glover Teixeira, the IQ factors in. I don't see him staying at range. I hope that's not the plan. I see him rushing, pressing against the cage, making him burn some calories, dragging him into the deep water, and I see a finish by submission. I see him dragging him down on the mat, and I see him just pretzeling this kid. I mean, I just think it's going to be a old man clinic, and I'm going to be the loudest one cheering. And he'll head back to Danbury, Connecticut with that belt.
now we get into Frank Zafferty's real area of expertise, and that is women's MMA. Now we have the privilege, gentlemen, of living on planet Earth at the same time as Valentina Shevchenko. I know that Amanda, prior to her loss, was getting love as the baddest woman on the planet, but I think Valentina the Bullet might be the total package. Like when it comes to best overall female MMA fighter, she's in her perfect division, putting her belt on the line, taking on Taila Santos, if I want to say her name correctly. Now, guys, the odds on this one, you're going to have to look into the props to find some value here. Shevchenko is a minus 600 favorite. The comeback on Santos is plus 400. No, I do not think Taila Santos is going to win this fight. I think Shevchenko, who tends to, she's been getting a lot of finishes lately, guys. I think Shevchenko is going to finish her off. I believe her opponent is overmatched here. I think we're going to see Shevchenko getting a finish in the 2nd or 3rd round. So the prop that I am looking at on this one is Shevchenko by stoppage at plus 110. So I think I can get some good value there. I can get more than my money back on there. I don't think Shevchenko is going to have a little trouble. Obviously, lighter female weight classes, you could always be thinking, could very well go to the scorecards, and it could, but there's not a whole lot of value on that. So I'm going to go with Shevchenko plus 110 to get the stoppage here. Jonathan, I'll let you take it next.
Yeah, I do want to say that Taila Santos, comparative to a couple of Shevchenko's last fights, I think is just a little bit bigger, right? She does have a little bit more of a stronger style when it comes to somebody like Lauren Murphy, per se. Not so much Jessica Andrade, but she did something really unique in her couple of fights, right? When she fought Jillian Roberts, she took her down and she was able to kind of beat her at her own game. When she fought Joanne Wood, she was able to strike with her, knock her down, beat her at her own game. So I think we're going to see something here where Taila Santos is going to create kind of like a unique challenge for Valentina that we haven't seen in a long time. But to your point, Dono, I don't see her winning this fight. I think Valentina is way too sharp. Taila Santos does not have the best foot movement or the best lateral movement. And Valentina Shevchenko, man, you've seen those feet before. You know how fast she can be. Chris saying it, 2nd round TKO for the Bullet. I'm kind of leaning that as well. I think we'll probably get 3rd round. I would go ahead and take a 3rd round or before. If we were playing an over/under, I'd probably take third round stoppage or before. I think the first round she's probably going to figure out, kind of see the range, figure out Tyler Santos. Second round she peppers her up, beats her up a little bit more. Third round she gets it done. And I think that's more the path. But I do think Tyler Santos, like I said, is probably one of the more unique threats that we've seen for Valentina in the last couple of fights.
I don't have anything to add to that except to say, guys, I don't even know why we're breaking this down. Valentina's on a legacy tour right now. Isn't that what this is? I mean, she's going to stomp her. What is that? 8 defenses in a row. I mean, she's just, and with Amanda Nunes on a little bit of a slide, Jonathan, I don't know if you'd seen it, but Alex and I a while back had talked to Dean Thomas, and he had thought that Amanda might not really want to be a fighter anymore. Maybe that was part of the erosion that we saw happening. Well, with that erosion, Valentina is head and shoulders the best female mixed martial artist on the planet. So I don't know when the TKO happens, but it happens.
Yeah, I think we are all in concert on that one. And so, okay, next fight we're going to look at on this card is a rematch over a year in the making, 14 months, I believe. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Joanna, former champion, is back. And God, I remember how long I had to practice saying her name correctly years ago. I finally am able to hit it on the regular against Joanna and Weili. First time that they fought, gentlemen, this is a rematch. First fight was epic. It was excellent. Weili Zhang got her hand raised in that one. She is favored in this fight at minus 175 to Joanna's plus 145. And then an interesting wrinkle, Frank, that we can add into this is Zhang Weili has fought twice since, a couple of losses to Rose Namajunas, whereas Joanna, former champion, has not fought since. And I think that has something to do with, the odds should be close, but I think that has something to do with why, she's a clear underdog heading into this fight. I've watched Joanna dominate so many times throughout her career that it's hard for me to fully count her out. And the winner of this fight is going to get a crack at Carla Esparza for the belt. And Joanna has beaten the Cookie Monster before. That's who she claimed the title from initially, was Carla Esparza. So I find myself rooting for Joanna a bit here because I'd love to get that title rematch after this rematch, Frank.
Joanna, I mean, what was she out? 27 months she's been out? I mean, it's all from the career deteriorating.
I said 14 months, but you're right. 27. Is it 27 months?
27.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like that long ago.
No joke. The war that they had and the abuse that particularly, in my opinion, Joanna took reminded me of Rory McDonald and he fought to the top. Robbie Lawler. It reminded me of that fight where you knew one or both fighters had lost years in their career by virtue of the beating that they inflicted on each other. And her being out for all that time, I think, is indicative of that. That forehead hematoma is something I will never forget. It was just awful. Monster heart she has, but I don't see her getting this done. I think there's got to be a little PTSD in there, right? Like, you know what she did to you before, and you got to bite down your mouth guard, and it's likely to happen again. I don't think they're going to be able to beat the epic way that fight went down. I don't think that could ever be topped, but I think it'll be outstanding just because of Joanna's heart. But I think she loses, unfortunately.
Well, and real quick, Jonathan, before I go to you, maybe you can kind of sway me one way or another because I don't have a lot of conviction in betting this fight because I don't, and I know she lost the first one. I think all things equal, I think Joanna is just as good as Weili, and if they fought 10 times, it'd probably be about a split of 5-5. But Joanna has been out for so long, like someone said in the chat, she's been living her best life on social media. Alex said she's actually a good Instagram follow. Like she's deceptively, I'm not going to say, I don't want to sound unprofessional, but she's not a bad Instagram follow. I'm just going to throw that out there. So I don't know. I'm thinking I might sit this one out, Jonathan. What do you think?
No, I'm absolutely right there with you. If I would stay away from this fight as far as betting it. If you look at two of the last three fights for Zhang Weili have been split decisions. So you never want to leave your money up to the judges. So that's something I wouldn't really want to do. And obviously Joanna, she's a great fighter too. But this just necessarily isn't one of those fights you just want to let go to the cards. It's not 5 rounds like before, it's 3 rounds. So it's much more likely to make it to the scorecards with the less rounds to get the finish. Yeah, this isn't a fight that I necessarily would want to bet because there's so many unknowns. For Joanna, the unknown is she hasn't been in the octagon for that long. Is there any ring rust? Is there any rust, or any time that she's going to have to take before she gets into her flow? And then the question on Weili Zhang's side is, how is her mentality after losing 2 straight fights? Like, you were winning, I think, what was it, 18, 19, 20 fights in a row before you lost those 2 fights in a row. Where is your mental space at right now coming into this fight? But I do think this is going to be a good fight. I do think that styles make fights. And I do think somebody said in the comments, I think it was Chris, that say the rematches never live up to the expectations. I do expect this to be a pretty good rematch because I do think both of these fighters just have that style that they're going to go out there, they're going to throw the punches, they're going to leave they're going to be in range to actually get hit as well. And I think this is going to be a fun fight. I really can't pick who's going to win right now. It's really tough to make a definitive decision. But yeah, this is going to be a good fight, but a tough one to bet.
So if you guys missed the early part of this episode, go check out the replay because we did start with the main event. And surprisingly enough, even though I did make a strong case for Glover Teixeira, I was the only one on the panel who picked Yuri Prochazka. Frank and Jonathan like the champion Glover to retain on this one. So yeah, make sure you guys, if you're in here, smash the like button, hit the thumbs up button, and not only subscribe to 5 Reasons Sports. You may be watching us on 5 Reasons Sports, but we're simulcasting on our new YouTube channel, Combat Center. So make sure you throw us the sub on Combat Center, which is not just this show. And we're going to be back on Sunday, by the way, reviewing the pay-per-view on Saturday. It's not just this show, ton of extra interviews. Jonathan is out there going to all these fights and interviewing fighters. Anytime I have something or Frank has some training sessions, we're going to throw them up as well. So make sure you follow Combat Center. On the way out, gentlemen, this is a pay-per-view for the hardcore fan. Even though there's multiple belts on the line, this is not the type that, like, the people who show up for, like, the McGregor types, they're not going to be buying this one necessarily. So it's more of a fight for the hardcore fans. What do you rate this one? Quality of the pay-per-view, Jonathan, on a scale of 1 to 10? Because I probably go about a 5.5 for this one. I'm going to watch it because I'm a junkie.
Yeah, I'd probably have to go with I think you'd have to go with a 6.5. I think the main event could be the passing of the torch for this division.
Ooh.
I mean, Yuri Prochazka could win this title and very much reign for the next 2, 3, 4 years with how young he is and how much he can still develop. So I think we're probably seeing something like that. We're obviously going to have a legacy fight, and obviously whenever we get these legacy fights, they're fun for whenever the career is done, but it's not necessarily the most fun to watch Valentina run through these women. I think she gets it done, and we're gonna have a couple of fun fights with the rematch. I do like Manel Kopp as well. I think he can give us a good fight. A couple sleeper guys like Brendan Allen on there as well. So yeah, definitely a diehard card. I would give it probably 6.5. Not much name value, but I think a couple of years from now you can look back on this card and be like, oh, this is where these guys made their names.
That's exactly right. And that's what drives me crazy about this. This would be a 10 for me, or a 9 if it was on ESPN Plus or ABC, which is where it should be, because then you pull people in, you make these people marketable, you make these people potentially pay-per-view worthy. I don't know why they make these pay-per-views, but if you're paying $75, I understand why there's a lot of people that are going to pass.
Real quick before we sign off, because I think Alex M was asking for the link to Combat Center on YouTube. I don't think they let you post links on a StreamYard chat because then they think you're a spammer. So I just shared the screen. That way you guys can see what our logo looks like. Subscribe to brand new channel, Combat Center on YouTube. I'll enlarge this so you can see the logo because, again, I'm not sure. I don't want to waste my time trying to post a link in the chat if they won't let me do it. So you see Combat Center, hit subscribe. We're going to hit you guys ever so often with you did post it in the chat. There you go. So Jonathan also, I don't know why I thought I couldn't post it in the chat. So the link is in the chat. You guys can see what it looks like. Sorry, huge shout out and thanks to everybody who watched. Frank Zaffrey, anything you want to plug, like that awesome Twitter handle of yours?
No, because it just depresses me the next day when nobody signs up. I'm looking forward to getting together on Sunday and breaking this down. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, especially the last fight we just talked about. So close to call. I can't wait to see how it goes. We might be talking about the second best female fight we've ever seen.
Awesome. What about you, Jonathan? Anything you want to promote?
Yeah, just catch us on Sunday, right? We're going to be out here Sunday. I might also be having a couple of guys out from the PFL media. We might be doing a PFL mid-season preview, kind of going into PFL 4, 5, and 6 before they go into the playoffs. So look out for that as well. We might be doing that either early this weekend or sometime early next week before the next PFL.
That's awesome. Yeah, make sure you guys check out my dailies on 5 Reasons Sports and also Locked On Canes. Subscribe there wherever you get your podcasts and follow all of us on Twitter. You see the handles, except for Frank, but he doesn't want to plug it. I will plug it at RealFrank_Z. Throw him a follow, and we will talk to you guys on Sunday for a full review of UFC 275 on Combat Center. See